Have you been wanting to play games like Valorant, Fortnite, or other esports titles at 144 FPS but haven't been able to because gaming PCs have been so expensive the last year or so? Well, if you said yes, today I've got a surprise for you. Today I'm going to show you how I built a gaming PC that plays Fortnite, Valorant, Rainbow Six Siege, and more for just around $300. As we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really supports the channel. The PC gaming market has been really terrible over the last year or so. Things like shortages from COVID and then profitable cryptocurrency mining has all affected the pricing of components. So things like GPUs have just skyrocketed in prices. But currently the market is starting to look a little bit better. Prices have been starting to drop and there's more availability on PC components. I wouldn't be surprised if you could build something even cheaper or even better than this in the coming months. But to be honest, I'm just excited that I can build budget gaming PCs at around $300 again. So I'm sure you're wondering, what kind of crappy parts is this guy gonna use to build a $300 gaming PC in 2021? And we're gonna tell you. Well, like most of our budget builds, what we're gonna start with is a Dell OptiPlex. This is a Dell OptiPlex 9020, and some of you might know, recently I started a flip up challenge where I've been trying to flip a Dell OptiPlex up to a RTX 3080. And in doing that, I was able to sell a Dell OptiPlex and then pick up two more for the price that I sold the original one for. So I picked up two of these, two Dell OptiPlex 9020s. One's a small form factor and then there's this one. And I picked both of them up for $85. So after doing that, I decided, you know what, I want to use this computer in a build before I continue flipping it. So if you want to follow along for that flip up challenge, I'll link the videos up above and down below in the description if you want to check those out and follow on. It should be fun. But anyways, this Dell OptiPlex 9020 comes with a Intel Core i5 4590, 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, and then also a 500 gigabyte hard drive. Originally I was told that there was no hard drive included in the Dell OptiPlex, and I was okay with that at the price I was getting them at, but upon further inspection I noticed that each of them had a hard drive in it. So those are all components that we'll be able to utilize for this build. Moving on to the GPU, this is what actually inspired this build. I was looking around on eBay and I realized that you could buy a GTX 970 for around or even under $200. And also, locally I was able to find some of these for as low as $150, which makes this build possible. I just so happen to have one on hand, so that's what we're going to use for this build. But like I said, you should be able to pick one of these up for around $200, maybe even cheaper if you look around. So that's what we'll be using for the GPU. Now this card does use a fair bit of electricity, so using the power supply that's included in the Dell OptiPlex is not recommended. So what you'll want to do is probably upgrade the power supply, and that's what I'm going to do. So what we're going to be using is an EVGA 450BR power supply. I picked this up a few months ago for around $25, I think. And yeah, on EVGA's B-Stock website, they have a decent amount of power supplies, very similar to this, that you can pick up for between $25 and $35 a lot of the time. Especially if you're checking during the midweek madness sale, you can get things like free shipping, and it's a pretty easy upgrade for something like a Dell OptiPlex and pretty budget friendly as well. I also had to pick up a 24 to 8 pin power connector. So this is because the motherboard in the Dell OptiPlex has a 8 pin power connector instead of the 24 that you see on normal motherboards. It's just a proprietary thing that Dell does sometimes. Some of the models of OptiPlexes actually have a 24 pin, but I know that the 4th generation ones, the like 3020s and 9020s, the ones I've had all have an 8 pin power connector. So to be able to connect the power supply to the motherboard, you need this adapter. So that's what we're going to use. I got this on Amazon for about $11. So the total of this build comes to $284 currently, which is pretty good in my opinion. But there's one last thing that you should probably add. You don't technically have to. You can use the included hard drive in the Dell OptiPlex, but adding an SSD will make the build feel a lot more smooth. Things like booting, opening applications, adding a simple SSD for your boot drive will make things just feel a lot faster. It shouldn't affect gaming performance, but it does put us a little bit over the $300 mark. So with a budget SSD, you can get them for about $23 right now, and that would be a 128 gigabyte SSD. Maybe if they go on sale, you could get one for cheaper, but that's about the price I've seen them sitting at currently. So that would push the build up to $307 total for this budget gaming PC. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use an SSD for testing games and whatnot, but it really is up to you. If you have exactly $300 to spend and you can't spend an extra $7, then you could wait a month and save up and then buy one of these later. That's definitely an option, but an SSD is definitely worth it in my opinion. So I guess let's put this thing together and see how it runs. So one of the things that I forgot about when starting this build was that the GTX 970 that I have is a fairly large card, and with Dell OptiPlexes, they have this nifty little hard drive cage right here. Now this is nice, especially if you want to add hard drives, but in our case, it gets in the way of mounting the GPU. The GPU will not fit in this case with this hard drive cage. So I think we're gonna do a little bit of modding. I wasn't planning on doing this. It takes a little bit more time, but it should be fun, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys knowing that if you do buy a Dell OptiPlex and you're planning on doing one of these builds, just be aware that you may have to do a bit of case modding to be able to get your GPU to fit, or make sure that the GTX 970 that you're buying is under 10 inches in length to be able to fit in one of these. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is remove all the parts to begin with. The hard drive cage actually is riveted in, so they're not screws. I can't unscrew it. I actually have to drill out some of the rivets to be able to pull the hard drive cage out. But with that drilling comes metal shavings, and those are not exactly safe for PC components. There's a lot of circuits and things that could be shorted out by a simple metal shaving. So I'm going to remove all the components on the inside to begin with, and then work on the case with everything outside of it. And then hopefully we won't run into any issues with metal shavings shorting out any of the components. So we're able to get the motherboard out, and we're just leaving the CPU cooler on and the RAM in, so it shouldn't be that hard to rebuild. But yeah, maybe we'll clean this a little bit as we take out the hard drive cage as well. As you can see, we've cleared out the PC now, so it's just a matter of taking this hard drive cage out. So there's a few rivets on this side. I think there's about 5 or 6 on the bottom. And yeah, I think once we drill those out, we should be able to just take it out, and we'll have an extra, what, 3.5 inches or so. I got it out! Okay, so I have the hard drive cage removed now, and all the metal shavings removed. We're gonna go ahead and put it back together, and then the GTX 970 should be able to fit now. Okay, so we finished building the PC. We are able to get the hard drive cage out, and also the GTX 970 does fit now. If you want to see the inside, I haven't done a lot of cable management yet, but we're going to test it, make sure that it works, and then go over some benchmarks, see how this thing plays games. The first game I will be testing is Valorant, and on low settings at 1080p I saw an average FPS that sat between about 140 to 160, with 1% lows dipping down between 40 and 80 FPS depending on the map. I was honestly expecting this game to run a little better, but it was still very playable, and you should be able to still get some good use out of a 144Hz monitor if you want to. Moving on to the next game, we have Rainbow Six Siege. I tested this game out at 1080p low settings also, and in the built-in benchmark this game averaged above 190 FPS. But in actual games it seemed to stay closer to 160 FPS for me. This was a great experience still, and would also allow you to benefit from a 144Hz monitor. Lastly, I tested Fortnite. I first started testing the game out using performance mode at 1080p, but strangely I kept having issues with textures not fully loading, making the game look terrible, and even causing some objects to flicker slightly. I set it back to the normal DX11 mode, and with all the settings set to low and view distance set to far, the average FPS sat between 140 and 150, just depending on the part of the map and the amount of action going on. This did lower the frame rate a little bit, but it was a much better experience compared to performance mode. As you guys can see, this build performed pretty well, especially for a $300 PC in 2021. I will note, like I said before, that it's very possible that in the coming months you'll be able to build something for cheaper, or something that's even better than this for the budget. But if you're somebody that's just tired of waiting and wants a game now, there are possibilities if your budget is around $300. And lastly, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, go ahead and subscribe and drop a like on the video. It really helps a lot. And have a great day. I'll see you later.